I know the idea of hand painting things seems a bit intimidating, but trust me when I tell you that this is extremely easy. And the best part is, these lines, they're not supposed to be straight, okay? I know you guys got this. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let's wake up, prep these tumblers, and slay all day. Let's do this. So I've been wanting to do something with this barrel style tumbler for so long now, something other than a snowman or a football or all those, those typical things that we see done with those barrel tumblers. So I was very excited to be able to do this potted plant inside of it, and I really feel like it looks so cute with it. So I knew I was going to be doing a lot of painting over top of whatever my base is. So I chose something very neutral to go under it. All I do is have 15 mLs of epoxy. I put a little bit of mica powder into it. The mica powder I used is called Arlo. I felt like it was a really good base. It's very neutral and I could paint right over it and it kind of would blend in with everything I would do over top. I'm going to stir that right in. Now for my tumbler, I already prepped and primed it. I just used whatever brown I had on hand. This is like a camo brown. My husband happened to have bought some camo color paint, so I use that for my base. And I'm just gonna go ahead and put all 15 mLs of this epoxy over top. And I'm just going to give it a couple little dibble dabbles all over it, just kind of give it a little texture just in case it does poke through once I paint over top. Then I'll go ahead and put that onto my turner, hit it up really good with my torch, and I'm going to let that cure all the way before I move on to my next step. Now for the bottom, because I'm going to be painting the top, I'm going to go ahead and struggle while I put on this painter's tape. But I just wanted it as straight as I possibly can get it, especially with this curve we have going on here. So just as straight as possible, so that way there's a defining line between where the pot will be and where the plants will be. I chose to do a snake plant. The reason why I chose to do a snake plant is because there's actually some growing just randomly around my neighborhood, and I was always like, I didn't know that they could do that. I guess they are a tropical plant. And we recently went to a beach somewhere and they were all over the place, and I was just kind of like, you know what, that's what I'm gonna do. So I am using two different colors. If you happen to look up snake plants, they typically have a yellow on the edge and then the green in the center. So I am going to use just whatever colors I have on hand. I think it was just like a basic acrylic yellow and then like a pop of color called jade. So that's what I'm going to use for my two colors. Then I'm simply just going to take a medium-sized round brush here, and I am just going to load up each side with each coordinating color here. So one side yellow, one side green. The reason why I'm not doing two sides with the yellow just yet is because this is just my background plants, and it doesn't matter if they have yellow on each side, but you'll see what I mean here in a minute. This is literally just going behind everything. So it doesn't have to be exact. We just need some filler. So taking that brush and starting at the tape line and just going all the way up, I'm going to press down so it kind of flattens out a bit. And then as I pull up, it will kind of extend that pointness to the top, kind of similar to how snake plants are. Now here I decided I wanted a bit thicker, so I decided to go ahead and just go all the way up to the top, because at first I was only going to stop halfway, kind of in that manner where you could still see the mica underneath, but then I decided just to finish it and go all the way to the top. So I'm just going to do this motion where I switch between the two colors there, and I'm just going to keep going completely around the tumbler, just filling it in as much as I would like to. I really like the look though if you leave some gaps at the top, so that way you can see that mica poking through at the top. So I'm just going to go as close as I can right next to the one leaf, and then just keep going just like in this manner, just completely around, just trying to leave a little bit of gaps at the top so you can still see that mica. There we go. Now you can see that a little bit better. So I'll just take my paint and just press down and just twist my brush a bit at the top just to give it a little bit of variation. And I really like the squigglies on the edges too. I feel like it makes it look a lot more like a snake plant, a little bit more realistic, I guess you could say. But again, we're not looking for perfection. We are just looking for a filler. So mine is all done. I'm going to set that off to the side and let that fully dry. I'm not going to hit it up with my hair dryer because with the chalk paints, if you dry it too fast, it could crack and we don't want that. You want to make sure you go ahead and rinse off all your materials because you don't know how long you're going to be walking away from and you still need your brush. So go ahead and rinse that stuff off. And then when it's all dry like it is right here, we'll move on to the next step. So now taking an acrylic marker, I'm going to come in and do some little lines on our plants because if you look at the plant that I'm doing, there are these kind of zigzags, almost like these stripes going throughout the entire plant, and they are a bit uniform but not quite uniform. So you kind of want these very similar to each other, but to try to still look as realistic as possible. So I'm trying to make sure that I keep the gap in between each individual plant about the same, so that way it doesn't look too off on it. And then when I go to move on to the next leaf, I'm going to try to make sure that it's not completely straight across. Like I'll kind of bring it up or down if I need to make sure that there is a variation in between each individual leaf. And of course, I will just kind of look and see because it does look like some of these look like they're over top of each other. And I'm just going to use that to my advantage again to make it look more realistic and more like filler plants behind our main leaves that we are going to be putting over top here in a minute. So this process here took me a little bit. I probably sat for a good half hour or so, if not longer, and made sure that my little stripes looked nice because I want my tumbler to look nice, obviously. So I did come through and just really take my time and make sure that it looks nice, my little squiggles here. So now after I get my last little plant done, I'm going to come through with a yellow acrylic marker, and then we're going to highlight the outsides of our leaves even more. So just taking that yellow acrylic marker and just making my way from the top to the bottom, we're just going to give a little bit more highlights to really define those leaves. So after I get done highlighting the outside of my leaves, I am going to move into the next portion right after this dries pretty much. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, then go ahead and seal it if you want to before you paint, or if you really just are afraid you're going to mess it up, go ahead and put another coat of epoxy over top, so that way if you do happen to mess up, you can just simply wipe it away if you need to. So now these leaves I'm going to be painting on the outside are going to be our more upfront leaves. So we want them to look a little bit nicer, and I want them to have the two-tone on each side. So I'm going to take my yellow and squirt it on each side, leaving a space in the center for my green. And using the same brush I used earlier, I just want to make sure that one side of the brush has the yellow, the other side of the brush has the yellow, and the center will have the green. And just like doing before, I will take that and go from the bottom all the way to the top. And it doesn't matter if you're accidentally going over something. That's the beauty of this. You want those plants underneath to be showing through. So I'm going to leave a gap in between each one of my showpiece leaves here, so that way you can still see a bit of the background leaves behind it, obviously. And I am just going to continue that motion completely around this tumbler. And I want you guys to watch my brush strokes. I do come through because, again, these are my outside leaves. And I'm going to make sure that I get those squiggles on the edges. So I kind of bounce my brush here and there just to make it, again, look as realistic as possible for myself. All right, now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and set that off to the side. Again, not hitting it up with my blow dryer. I'm going to let that just dry naturally off to the side, and then we'll come back and do some more squiggles and outlines. Now, before I do the squiggles, I'm actually going to come through and put a center on these leaves, since again, they are our showpiece leaves. So I'm going to do a center on each one of these leaves, and then I will come through and do that zigzag motion, making that pattern that is well known on these particular plants. And then of course I will come through and add a few more highlights just around the edges, just making it pop that much more. So easy. I know you guys got this. So now, once I knew that was completely dry, we're going to go ahead and move on to the pot portion. I went ahead and removed the painter's tape, and I'm going to be doing a crackle effect. So I have my crackle medium, which is just a one-step crackle medium. All you want to do is paint it on, as I am doing in this fashion. Let that dry absolutely completely, and then paint your paint over top. Now, I do have to admit, the next part I'm going to jump over to is I already have the paint on it and it already has the crackle going, but it is extremely easy. All you have to do is what I just said, paint it on, let it dry, and then you're going to very carefully paint your paint over top. So I pretty much just used a big fluffy brush from the Dollar Tree. I used the color Terracotta from Pop of Color. I really like that. It's so pretty. I need to use that more often. It's a very neutral, very pretty brown. I just very carefully just wiped my brush all around the top there and then just filled in the bottom just like so. And then I hit it up with my hair dryer, and then you just watch the cracks form, and that's as simple as that. So I wanted a defining area where the lip of my pot was. So I'm coming through with the same color and with a flat brush, and I'm just going to paint this color on, making that band of the top of the pot across the middle. And after that dries fully, I will take another brown acrylic marker. I'm going to run it along the top of the pot and below where I would want the rim to be. Now I'm going to go ahead and put some epoxy over top, but before that, I'm going to go ahead and seal it up. I'm going to use liquid sealer today, or use your spray sealer if you would like to. After that's dried, I'm going to go ahead and put a coating of epoxy over top. I think I did about 10 mLs, nothing too crazy. Maybe it was 15. I don't know, it was something like that. Just a coating so that way we can put our vinyls over top. I got the quote right off of Creative Fabrica. It came just like this. I didn't do an offset to it or anything. I cut it out in this champagne textured vinyl. There we go. And I'm just going to get that applied. I'm going to add its last two finishing coats of epoxy, and she is good to go. Or should I say, she is good to grow. I cannot thank every single one of you enough for being here, and I cannot wait to see what you make.